It's time for
DodgerHeads.
high fly ball into right field. Dodgers have won it all in 2020. Shohei Ohtani, 50-50 club. Strikes him out. There's a drive. Shohei Ohtani. Freeman hits the ball. She is gone. Birthday party, Los Angeles. Your Dodgers have won the World Series.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel. That is Anthony Witrado. That is Bruce Kuntz. We are here discussing, in case you forgot, the 2025 World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. There was a parade today. There's been tons of talk about the game in the last couple of days. We're going to do great moments, so tons to get to. Anthony, I'll start with you. How has your body recovered from the last 48 hours that I imagine were, different maybe than a normal 48 hours of your life?
Sunday was very slow moving. Yes.
The last we saw you on Saturday night lent some reason to believe that Sunday might have been a little more slow moving.
Yeah, we were definitely taking it easy. We had a nice chill day with the family, for reasons.
Yes.
We'll say that. But yeah, it's been a nice content heavy last 2 days, getting a whole lot of views in on things that people have posted on YouTube and social media.
Can we get a percentage of Dodgers content versus Blue Jays content that you've been consuming over the last 48 hours? Are we 50-50?
Yeah, no, today was like 80-20 Dodgers, but
Okay.
Sunday was probably close to 50-50. Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
I gotta
Bruce,
know
how's
what the people are saying.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, you got to keep your ear on the street. Bruce, how's the last 48 hours been for you?
It's been great. Today I got to be in the stadium for the whole championship celebration thing. So that was really cool. I missed it last year. I was sick as a dog and I regretted every bit of it that I wasn't there. So got to make up for it this year. And it was really cool to be in the stadium for that and see Clayton Kershaw giving his last speech and that whole thing was really awesome.
I love it. I tried so hard to be there. And shout out to the ticketing system and how terrible it is to try and get tickets to an event like that.
So bad.
Sit in the waiting room of purgatory for an hour. Then they let you in, show you tickets are available, only to find out that none of them can actually be added to your cart or eventually purchased. So I had a flight in the hopper. I had a friend who was going to let me crash on his couch and pick me up from the airport. I texted buddies about making a 14-hour drive through the night to get there, but all of it hinged on getting tickets to the stadium and no dice on that front. So the other question I wanted just to ask from the get-go was, how are our wallets doing? I know I posted this on social media, and Dodger fans are happily spending money. None of us seem to be bothered by the fact that we've done this twice in the last handful of years. Anthony, I was saying right before we came on, I've got a hat. I've got 2 shirts. I did the LA Times. I did the LA Times yearbook. I did shirts for my kids. So we're inching. I've got more Yamamoto gear sitting in a cart. That's not to mention all the stuff that's going to be coming out in the next 2 or 3 weeks that I'm sure I'll be interested in as well. So how is your wallet doing, Anthony?
I'm probably about 250 in.
Okay.
And there are still things that I need to get.
Yeah.
Yesterday, woke up. The only real significant movement that I did yesterday was going over to the store and getting the World Series patch hat. I have already ordered the championship patch hat. I'm sure I'll get the gold one again when it comes out next spring. But yeah, I got a couple of T-shirts. And then also I am doing. I haven't gotten these yet. These are the things I need to get still. But the LA Times prints that they frame, I'm going to do a couple of those as well. I did a couple last year, so the garage is going to be nice and decorated.
I love it. Bruce, how you doing down there? I know you're a college student, so you're in a different weight class than adults like Anthony and I. But talk to me.
Yeah, I haven't dipped in yet. That doesn't mean that I won't, but I definitely will be on the lookout for the things that fit my budget. Today, I managed to get the tickets to the stadium today for face value, so I wasn't spending World Series prices on those, thankfully. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been there. But that was enjoyable today, and then now over these next couple weeks, I'll definitely be spending some time on Fanatics, surfing and finding the best stuff.
I love it. I love it. I know. I look at the hat that you've got, Anthony, and I have the same hat from 2020 and from 2024. You can see the 2020 hat right there. 2024 I often wear. So I was like, do I just get the third straight blue hat with the 2025 patch? And I think for now, my instinct is to just hold off until the gold hat comes out, because I have not purchased a gold hat before. And so
Yeah, you
maybe
have to
that's
get a
the
gold one.
2025 route. But again, I was the one that was kind of the low man on the last gold design that they came out with.
The one in 2020 was definitely better. We've had this whole discussion about the gold stuff, but I got it anyway.
I hear you. I hear you. So we'll see. And I can't imagine they're going to do the same thing they did last year, 2 years in a row. So maybe it goes back to a more 2020-ish design, or maybe they mix it up in a different way.
I wore out my 2020 gold hat until it doesn't even look gold anymore. It's more like silver, and it doesn't fit me either. So I wore the heck out of that hat. Got my money's worth.
I love it. I love it. Well, folks, we got tons to get to. By the way, you will notice that I have a mustache and no beard. As I believe Anthony can attest, somebody said, if they win the World Series, will you shave? And my answer was yes. I think this was the DS or the CS. I mean, we were not in the World Series, I don't think, when that bet was made. And so here we are with a mustache. My wife is happy. There's a princess who I'm sure deserves lots of Dodgers World Series gear.
She has a actually, you know what I did not factor into that 250, it's over 300, because she's getting she got a Shohei jersey coming.
There you go. There you go.
I asked her if she wanted Mookie or Shohei Ohtani, because she's grown out of the Mookie one. And you wanted Mookie or Shohei or Ohtani?
Mookie.
No, now you want Mookie, of course.
Yeah.
She was adamant yesterday that it was Ohtani that she wanted.
I love it. I love it. That's how kids work. That's how kids work. So we got tons to get to tonight. Like I said, we're going to talk parade. We're going to talk storylines from the last 48 hours. And then we're actually going to do a recap of the top moments from the postseason and the World Series. I've got a list. Let's just say my list started at the goal of 10 and ended up much larger than that. So stay tuned on that front. Let's get to some super chats, though, as we dive in. Britt starts us off. They made the World Series because they drew Milwaukee. If it's the Cubs, we're talking Cancun Dodgers right now. What is Manny going to say now? Ha, back-to-back, up and to the right. The excuses that I hear about how the Dodgers got here, it's fantastic. I was going to use this as one of my favorite storylines, Bruce, from the last couple of days. It's worth pointing out the Dodgers went through the wild card round. They went through the 2 seed in the NL. They went through the 1 seed in the NL, and then they went through the 1 seed in the American League. They literally had as hard of a path as you possibly could in a given year. And yet, Bruce, we're still dealing with stuff like this.
You play the cards that you're dealt. And like you said, the Dodgers were not dealt an easy stack by any means this year. I think it's a different conversation to say that there wasn't really a juggernaut in the playoffs. Like, this felt like a fairly evenly divided season across baseball. And we talked about it going into the postseason too, that there wasn't any team that, even the Dodgers, had their own certain weaknesses. So that's a different conversation than to say the Dodgers, like you said, literally played the 1 seed from both leagues. I think a lot of people would say the Phillies were an even bigger threat than the Brewers were. So I don't know what else it could have been for the Dodgers to have earned this World Series. So it's a non-starter for me.
Yep, exactly. Phil, Yamamoto, the best pitcher in the world. There may be pitchers with higher velocity or better stuff, but his command, pitch mix, and smarts is second to none. Reminds me of Maddox, but with better stuff. Maddox, but with better stuff, feels like there's a lot going on there. Maddox, one of the best pitchers of all time. But Anthony, I do feel like Greg Maddux is a good comp as far as the type of pitcher that Yamamoto is, because you can't compare him to like Paul Skeens or Tarek Skubal, for example, because the electricity of fastballs that those guys have just puts them in a totally different category of type of pitcher. Whereas somebody like a Greg Maddux, or even I would say, and I know people hate it because it's like you're comparing one Japanese player to another, but like Yu Darvish, just the plethora of pitches he could throw at you was kind of his greatest strength. It feels like they were there for Yamamoto. And I tweeted it out. Jason Stark said, if you didn't believe Yamamoto's the best pitcher in the world last week, surely you do now.
Yeah. I think, look, Skeens is going to win the Cy Young Award. obviously voting is done before the postseason. if postseason factored in, I think that those results might be shifting a bit.
Yeah.
But I do think from a command standpoint, Greg Maddux is a fair comp. Yamamoto's like a 80, like a 78 to 80 on the command on the 2080 scale.
Yeah.
But Greg Maddux was never pumping 97 consistently either.
Yeah.
And so, you know what I mean? Like we live in a time where, like, if your fastball isn't triple digits, it's like, it's good average, right? If otherwise, 97 is not slow by any means, you know?
No.
And so, when you mix in his pitch mix, his command, and the fact that he can throw the ball hard, I think that he is developing into the best pitcher in baseball. I can't wait to see what he starts to look like when he just gets even more comfortable, because we saw him take a significant step forward this season. The durability was there, and the ability to pitch on short rest and at any time he was needed was evident. And so, I think as he gets to settle in more and more in America and get more comfortable here, I think we're just going to keep seeing better versions of this guy for a while.
Yeah. And Bruce, Anthony makes a great point with all of that. And the thing I keep coming back to is the hurdle, if you want to call it that he's going to have to overcome to become the best pitcher. It's just never going to look the same as it does with Paul Skeens. Like when Paul Skeens just rears back and throws 102-mile-an-hour fastballs for 7 straight innings and nobody can touch it, that's just always going to carry a level of dominance with it, and the optics of dominance with it, that a guy who is getting you to swing and miss at his curveball or his splitter or like at a perfectly placed 96-mile-an-hour fastball, it's just never going to be as aesthetically pleasing to the average fan. To me, that's the only thing that is keeping Yamamoto from being the best pitcher in baseball, or at least like on the trajectory to becoming.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation, because I don't think there's really an argument for anybody other than that being the top 3. And it becomes pretty hard to rank those guys with Yamamoto, Skeens, and Skubal, because you can't put anybody above Yamamoto after what he just did. Those other guys didn't have the opportunity to do it, but it's, Yamamoto just had a historic type. Like, you can't just assume that other guys can do it based off of pure stuff. Yamamoto's in a league of his own right now. But you're right. Yamamoto's dominance, it looks a little different, but I think that we have to still emphasize the kind of stuff that Yamamoto has. It's not like that his stuff is lacking in any way or average with just great command. Like, he still throws 93-mile-an-hour splitters, and he came out of the bullpen on no rest, and he threw more than half of his pitches were splitters, and that splitter's nasty enough that it's all he needs. So I think Yamamoto is still a heavy stuff guy, and the command that he brings with it, and the big thing for him that sets him apart for me and why he's able to have a performance like he just did is just the makeup and the experience that he has from pitching in the Japan series to now in these 2 postseasons. He just looks like he's made for the big moment. And that really is something that is built into a pitcher's DNA, to be able to go out there and put the team on his shoulders like he did this postseason. We've already talked about how guys just don't go out and throw back-to-back complete games ever anymore, let alone in the postseason. And that's something that is unique to Yamamoto right now and puts him in a class of his own.
One thing here too, I think that for the conversation that's going to be had for probably years now about who's the best guy out of this group of pitchers. I think the one thing nobody can deny as of today is that the best big game hunter in baseball is Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
Yeah, totally. And, that's the beauty of coming and playing on the Dodgers, right? Like, we just don't know how Paul Skeens is going to be able to handle the big moment. And unfortunately, as long as he's in Pittsburgh, we'll probably never know how he handles that big moment. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. There's not a sane person in Major League Baseball that if their life depended on winning a baseball game, nobody in the world today is picking anybody other than Yamamoto to start that game. And he has proven that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Back-to-back says, how much money is getting spent on World Series championship merch? Based on the number of things I click on, by the way, that say sold out in the right sizes, a lot of money worldwide is being spent on merch. So I actually have a friend who's traveling to Japan this week. And so my hope is that he finds some sweet merch over in Japan that I can get some exclusive stuff. We'll see. Stay tuned. Joseph says, great day today. Went to Disney with the fam yesterday. Other than a game, never seen so much Dodger gear. It was beautiful. On radio, Vasse said Yoshi spoke better English than his interpreter. LOL. Jeez, Vasse Vassay was feeling himself today. So
He was
there you go.
he was in Vassay form today.
Exactly. Doc Geo with the $20 super chat. Thank you for all your hard work, all the psychotherapy sessions all year. Love this team. Have a great offseason. Do you think Roki works on another pitch? Starter next year? Trade for Skubal? Sign young hitters? ? Roki will be a starter next year. I think that's the safest bet out of here. Bruce, is there another pitch for him to incorporate, or is it fastball, splitter, slider, and just kind of maintaining the work that they started to do at the end of this year to get those pitches right?
I think it's maintaining the arsenal and continuing to work on. He started to throw a sinker too. So I would call it a 4-pitch mix now, and really trying to hone in on especially getting that slider to a point that it can be a really good out pitch against the righties to go along with the splitter. I think when he was coming over, that slider was the pitch that I was most interested in, along with how his fastball would translate, just how the Dodgers would change his slider. Whether it would stay that kind of sweepier, slower sort of pitch or transition to a bullet slider. I think eventually he winds up with more of the bullet style that I think they started to move him towards already. And then figuring out what fastball is best for him. If he can get better fastball metrics and be able to throw a 4-seam up in the zone and not get destroyed with it, it's tough to measure if it's not at 101 or, at least at, 98 miles an hour, 99. That pitch is going to get hit. So I think going into the lab and figuring out exactly what he can consistently find in the fastball will help them narrow down whether it needs to be a sinker or if they can live with the 4-seam and hope it stays up in the triple digits.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm going to try my hardest. If people put super chats, we'll talk about it. I'm going to try my hardest to leave the offseason talk for the Padres blog accounts here for the next couple of weeks because we have a World Series championship to talk about. But I understand people are already curious, like, what's the next move? What's going to happen? And I'm going to say we got like 2.5 months until pitchers and catchers report to talk about that. So
and we got a month until winter meetings, so we'll have plenty of time to discuss that stuff.
Exactly. Don't care says keep ruining baseball. Sign Kyle Tucker and bullpen arms. Yeah, I mean, I'll say on the offensive side, I think there's going to be some moves. David says, will the Dodgers or the league try and learn from Yamamoto from what he does for his training to help other pitchers limit injury? There is something there. I remember when they signed him, Anthony, there was this little undercurrent of with Yamamoto maybe comes some interesting new philosophies and strategies around pitching. I'll say these aren't things that you can go to like a Blake Snell or a Tyler Glasnow necessarily and say, hey, in the middle of your career, in the middle of the prime of your career, why don't you try some new things that are dramatically different? But I do think it's the type of thing that if the Dodgers learn enough, they can start to incorporate at lower levels of the minor leagues as guys are developing, as their bodies are maturing. That's where it feels like there might be a little secret sauce.
Yeah, to no surprise, there's been a lot of talk about this nationally and within the Dodgers sphere. I think today it was either Blake Snell or Glasnow during the parade interviews, like after the stuff in the stadium happened, mentioned like, hey, I'm looking at it like, is there stuff I can learn from this guy? And so I think they're already thinking that way. I'm sure they're thinking that way as an organization. But the emphasis on flexibility and plyometrics and that sort of stuff, as opposed to like the guy's never lifted a weight in his life, right? Like, and he could barely get the MVP trophy up over his head. But like a lot of that stuff, I think is probably going to seep into, what the Dodgers do. Like, this is a really smart organization and their player development is top tier. And so, yeah, I think they know that they have to start looking into that and seeing if there's something there that they can start to incorporate, because Yamamoto is sort of a generational type talent, but that doesn't mean the stuff that he's done is a big factor in getting him to the level that he's at.
I think it's an interesting thing to approach because you have to keep in mind that Yamamoto's a unique case with his build is idealized and his mechanics are so perfect that I think like you can't take exactly what he does and think it would work for everybody. So you have to kind of look deeper, I think, under the hood, figure out exactly why what he does works for him, and then figure out how to apply it, because like his motion, everything about how fluid he is, I think works towards limiting the stress. You can't just throw that specifically onto a guy like Tyler Glasnow that's so much bigger and and just there's more going on, more bigger levers, all those kind of things. So I think you have to look at what Yamamoto does, apply it to how it works for him, and then figure out how you can create a sort of style for guys that aren't necessarily like Yamamoto and see how it could work there too.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And like Glass now is the extreme case, right? Because he's like 6'7" or whatever. But I do think like there are some universal things involved here, because to Bruce's point about the mechanics, the story that came out before, I think it was before Game 7. I want to say Fabian wrote it for The Athletic. But a lot of that discussion actually, oh no, you know what? It was after the World Series was over. It was Jeff Passan who wrote it.
Yeah, I was going to say Passan had a big piece talking about the trainer.
And a lot of the content in that story about that workout regimen, like how he goes about doing that, was about refining the mechanics. It wasn't the mechanics that make that work. It was that workout routine or the stuff that he does that help refine those mechanics. So I think that there's something that can be taken from that to say, like, yes, this guy does have perfect mechanics, but does this help him get there?
Yeah. We've seen the way Yamamoto, like in the dugout in the middle of his starts, he doesn't stop running through his windup. Like I think that's the thing to look at for him. And the thing that's most interesting to me is, like you said, Anthony, how refined his mechanics are. There's no pitches that are more stressful than they need to be because his mechanics are so perfect. I think that's the big lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. Raul says, to the victor go the spoils. Seeing Kershaw pass the torch to Yamamoto, priceless. Curious, would the Dodgers chase Skubal and keep ruining baseball? Thanks, guys. The Dodgers seem to be in on everything. I would say starting pitching is like the one area it doesn't seem like they have a need. They actually have an abundance of players who could factor in. Now, maybe they trade some of those. Maybe they package them. I find it hard to believe that the biggest thing they would do this offseason would involve bringing a new starting pitcher in. I think it would be more on the offensive side of thing, whether it's a free agent or a trade. So for now, I'll leave it there because we'll talk about this, I'm sure, in the coming weeks and months. But those are my thoughts, Raul. We appreciate the super chat. Okay, we already got this. MMA, Will Smith's knees goated after catching the entire World Series. The answer is yes. The answer is yes.
I heard his cleats are going to the Hall of Fame.
There you go.
And then also, no surprise, because I think this World Series was the most innings in any World Series. But he caught everyone, so he holds the record now for most innings caught in a World Series.
Yeah, breaking a record, I believe, held by a guy that caught in a World Series that was 8 games long. So shout out to Will Smith for breaking a record that was basically unbreakable, unless you have 2 extra inning games and one of them goes 18 innings. Shelly, this is to thank all of Dodger Blue for a fabulous season. You guys got me through tough stretches. Will there be shows this offseason? The answer is yes. I know our guy Scott is going to be live tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and kind of hit or miss a little bit from there, but we will be on. We haven't figured out exactly what the schedule is, whether it's going to be 2 nights a week or 3 nights a week. But yes, we will still be here for the coming months. DJ, Yama trainer, save Doc to make Yama pitch Game 7. There we go. TQT, we may not always agree, but I appreciate you guys. Hey, that's the beauty of it. We don't all have to agree. We don't have to see things the same way, but we're all rooting for the same team, which is the beautiful thing. Let's talk parade, guys. Parade thoughts, and mine is very, very simple. Kiké Hernández stole the show. He gets an A+ if this thing was graded on the curve, Bruce. You were there in the stadium. It was an awesome day. I didn't get to watch last year's. I was out of town and off the grid by the time the parade actually happened. But I sat and enjoyed this whole thing. And Kiké Hernández, to me, again, it was the total headline.
Yeah, it was interesting because the cheering was so loud with basically everything Kiké was saying that I couldn't make out all of it. I was pretty sure he dropped a couple F-bombs at the end. And then when I listened back, I was confirmed in my suspicions.
After, I believe he said effing. He said effing like the first time. I was like, oh, he's going PG. And then it was like, no, I'm just going to actually unleash these later.
Yeah, it was fun to see. There were definitely some of those guys that were not the soberest they've ever been, and they leaned into the crowd. The crowd was awesome. Like being inside the stadium, it felt like even before the team got there, they just had SNLA playing on Dodger Vision, and every time they showed a guy for the first time, the whole stadium would erupt like a home run just got hit. Like there was so much noise in there. More than I could have thought there could be for not even a game happening. It was truly electric.
Anthony, watching on TV, what were your thoughts? What were your kind of big takeaways?
Yeah, I was there last year, not sober as well. There's a theme here, I think, when the Dodgers win championships. But it was a fantastic experience, and I wanted to go this year, just kind of didn't work out. But watching it on TV, I definitely had FOMO. But I think the one thing that I got to experience a little cleaner at home was the speeches.
Yeah.
And you're right, Kiké stole the show. That was fantastic. But there was no bigger aura farming than Yamamoto walking out by himself and the team sending him out there by himself. And he has always struck me as the kind of guy who like is so humble that he wants to stay away from that sort of stuff. He bought in today.
He thrives on it. Yeah.
He walked out there and he strutted himself all the way out to the stage by himself, and with the sunglasses, and they had the camera, from the lower angle, and make him look like he was 6'10" instead of 5'10". It was beautiful to watch him do that, and then for him to give his address in English, I thought was fantastic, and not just English but also Spanish, and I thought that was a really cool gesture by him, and really showed that when he says something like "I love Los Angeles," like it's believable when he does stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. My other takeaway was that the group as a whole was infinitely less inebriated this year than they were last year.
I thought so too.
I joked on social media. I think Bonda was the only person I watched give an interview where I was like, this guy's definitely drunk right now. That was it. Like, there weren't any other people that I can remember. Anthony, you were watching on the broadcast, so again, you might have had a slightly better perspective, but like, he was the only guy I saw on in either element of the day that felt like cooked completely.
Yeah. I think that's the way to put it. Like, he was completely in the bag. Like, other guys were on their way, you could tell, but like, he was the only guy that was like that. Last year, by the time they got to the stadium, there was a few dudes who were. I can't wait. I wonder where the after party was. Last year, I want to say it was at Mookie's house, and then Mookie recorded that podcast with like a bunch of different players coming in and out. I really hope he does that again. And also, by the time they got to Mookie's house and recorded that stuff, a lot more guys were in the back. So I'm curious to see how that goes this year if they did it.
Yeah. Bruce, my only other thought, and I don't mean to be negative on a day that's so positive. You were there, so you tell me if I'm wrong. I was so hopeful that when they announced Clayton Kershaw's name, that it was going to be so loud for like 3 consecutive minutes of cheering that he would not be able to step to the mic. It felt like that moment fell a tiny bit flat. And you tell me, was that because I was watching on TV, or was that because I was maybe just hoping for too much from that moment?
I think a little bit of both. I definitely felt like the ovation could have gone on a little longer. There were some chants going on for other guys, and there wasn't a Kershaw chant specifically throughout the day, but you could still feel that there was a ton of appreciation. And I think the clapping, it part of, like, for me, I think it felt like that the ovation for Kershaw was almost more respectful. Like, there were people holding back tears instead of cheering.
Got it.
And it was more like a reflective ovation instead of everybody just going, like when Kiké grabbed the mic, everybody's just going nuts, and there's no really remorse with it at all. But I think everybody had it in mind that this was the send off to Kershaw, and that bled into the ovation. But everybody's hands, like where you're clapping down here for everybody else, it was up high for Kershaw, and it felt more like a reflective ovation.
I thought that Joe Davis didn't do a great job of setting him up.
Well, he screwed it up first because he went to go introduce Kershaw like 5 people too early.
The pump fake. I think he didn't choose his words wisely when he did that, because I think they had a camera on Kershaw and then realized, oh, he's not talking about him. He's talking about
because he was talking about him. And then he halfway through, he stopped his speech because I'm guessing somebody got in his ear and was like, yo, it's not Kershaw's turn yet. You need to start. And then he's like, and Mookie Betts. And they were like, he just called him the GOAT. I think he just called Mookie Betts the GOAT. So he screwed that up.
And then also, I thought that it was probably a miss to not have Teo speak because he stole the show last year. And maybe it wasn't going to live up to that. But I was curious what he would say in the second season. But he never got a chance. So, but yeah, I'm with you that it did feel a little anticlimactic, at least on TV with the Kershaw stuff.
I was waiting for
Glasnow too. I was going to say Glasnow was like the only starting pitcher that didn't get a chance. And again, at some point you got to draw the line somewhere, because to your point, Teoscar could have spoken, Glasnow could have spoken, right? Those are probably the next 2 guys on the list for me, but I don't know. I wasn't bummed those guys didn't speak, because I thought the guys they chose, you could make a case for all of them. But I don't know. That was my only other thought, Bruce.
Miguel Rojas was really good too.
And the ovation that Rojas got was really, really cool. Everybody really lit up for that. I was kind of hoping Will Smith might speak just because he was the guy that hit the go-ahead homer, and it felt like they were going in almost chronological order of like Miguel Rojas and everybody ticking off the biggest plays. And Smith didn't get the mic, but he's not the most outspoken guy, so I get it.
I texted, I think it was Anthony afterwards. They get cut to the post-game desk, and they're like, Will Smith didn't get a chance to speak, but I know he's got a few things he wanted to say. So Kirsten Watson's standing by with Will Smith, and I'm just laughing. I'm like, there is no chance Will Smith has things he wants to say. Like, that guy could not. He was probably so thrilled they didn't throw a microphone in front of his face. And they're like, no. Will Smith has thoughts. We're going to cut to him with Kirsten Watson. I'm just like, my goodness. So he was a little better than normal. I'll give him that. All right. Undisputed Talk says we need to give Will Smith way more credit. Right. Look, if you're looking for a place that's giving Will Smith adequate credit, I can assure you have come to the right show to talk about Will Smith. We're going to get to Will Smith a little bit later. Some more super chats here before we talk about reflections. Robert says, I know it's early to talk next season, but I feel a ton of confidence for a three-peat with River Ryan and Gavin Stone factoring into the rotation and Penn. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about when I say that there's some depth in the pitching group next year that we didn't get a chance to see this year. DJ with another super chat. Kiké on the World Series brought a pen in a group project and get an A. Kiké in the parade got the laptop projector PowerPoint presented, then got an A. I love it. I will say one other thing. It's a reminder that these guys get paid lots of money to do something other than have huge personalities and speak publicly, because most of it was like, oh yeah, these guys are professional athletes and professional baseball players are stereotypically fairly boring. But that's what I think makes Rojas's speech. That's what I think makes Kiké's speech so good. And I have the utmost. I mean, to stand on that stage in the middle of that stadium with all those people and to try and be charismatic or compelling, like that's a huge ask. So kudos. That makes me appreciate what Kiké did, I think, even more. So kudos to Kiké, because if you haven't seen it, put your kids to sleep and then watch Kiké Hernández's speech would be my advice. All right. Bruce is with us for about 15 more minutes, and Anthony and I will close this down. But I want to go through. I read everything I could possibly find, it seems like, yesterday. And shout out to places like The Athletic, who didn't just have Fabian Ardaya writing stuff or Ken Rosenthal. It's like everybody. If you were a baseball writer at The Athletic, they gave you an assignment, and you probably nailed it. So I read through these guys, and maybe we can just take turns on some stuff, and this will be more of a rapid fire thing in 10 or 15 minutes than it will be fleshing all these things out. But your favorite things that you've read, favorite notes over the last 48 hours. I'll go first. Some of these are going to be some overlap. But it was related to Miguel Rojas' home run, specifically this one. Only once before had a player in Game 7 of the World Series hit a game-tying or go-ahead home run in the 9th inning or later. Bill Mazeroski was that one. He hit a homer that ended the 1960 World Series. So he hit a home run in the 9th that went from losing to winning, game over. Rojas's was the first that went from losing to tying. It was his 9th. The last time Miguel Rojas hit a 9th inning home run in his career was 2019. So this was his first 9th inning home run since 2019. It was his first home run off a right-handed pitcher this season, with the asterisk being it was an actual pitcher, because he hit one off of a right-handed position player this year. This was the first off a real pitcher. And then lastly on Rojas, it was 26 days between starts for Miguel Rojas. I believe it was a full month between hits. The unlikeliness of this home run, guys, was absolutely insane. Yeah. And those were my favorite notes on Rojas's home run. So that's my first one. Anthony, I'll let you go second.
Yeah. I think for me, there's been a lot of content that, like, during the World Series, going into the World Series, this whole, are the Dodgers bad for baseball?
Yeah.
Right. And we've lived with that narrative for a month or so. And then starting yesterday on Sunday and then into today, there was a whole lot of stuff that talked about, are the Dodgers good for baseball?
Yeah.
It was weird how the narrative just shifted like that with the one win. And I think that this was a much more logical look at all of this, because, the ratings had come out and, the ratings were through the roof for this World Series. But But more than that, I think it was taking a comb through what the Dodgers are actually doing, how they've done it, and why aren't other teams doing it?
Yeah.
You know, how come the Brewers are talking about trading Freddie Peralta over $10 million?
Yeah.
Why are the Tigers and Tarek Skubal so far apart on money right now? And they are, and now they're talking about potentially trading him. You know, and so there was a lot of that kind of stuff that I just found really interesting. In how that narrative shift happened so quickly. And my takeaway from it was like, the first part of it was clickbait. You know, are the Dodgers ruining the sport? The second part of it was people actually going, okay, we know that was stupid. Now let's actually talk about this for real.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Bruce, favorite thing you read or saw or found out in the last couple of days?
Yeah, so there were a couple of stats from Jesse Rogers and John Heyman. First, Jesse Rogers, he posted that the Dodgers batted 203 in the World Series, the worst mark for a champion since 1966. Over the last 2 seasons, they batted a combined 204 in the World Series, and they won both years. I thought that was crazy to speak to just what the pitching has done. Last year, it was mostly the bullpen. This year, it was the starters. The Dodgers have won these last 2 World Series based on their pitching. And that really highlights it. Just crazy stuff to hit dang near below the Mendoza line and win 2 straight World Series. It's insane. Yeah. And along that route, John Heyman posted the Blue Jays won most of the statistical battles, but LA out-homered Toronto 7-0 in close and late game situations.
There you go.
And I thought that was proof. Keep trying to hit home runs. Don't try and hit singles, because if you hit home runs in the big spots, that's how you win. The Dodgers were on the brink of collapse because they weren't getting their home runs enough. Then Muncy homered, then Rojas homered, then Smith homered, and that's how they won the World Series. So keep trying to slug. That's the way.
I think, Bruce, and I saw your tweet to that, Bruce, earlier, and I thought you were spot on. I also thought it really spoke to the false, in my opinion, false narrative that the Blue Jays outplayed the Dodgers in all these aspects. They outplayed them in some aspects, sure. The 2 that count the most in any baseball game, slugging and starting pitching,
yep.
The Dodgers won those going away.
How about wins? That's
and wins.
That matters.
And wins. And also, like, the Blue Jays did not play clean baseball at all. They made
just love the
outs on the bases. Like, I mean, they did a lot of dumb stuff too. And for whatever reason, I think because they were playing the big bad Dodgers, it got overlooked nationally.
Yeah, I'm sure you could find a clip of me saying the Dodgers played better in a game they lost or a series they lost. But it sounds so stupid when you say it out loud that the better team lost. Because I'm like, excuse me, let's talk about what better team means. Like, how do we define the better team? Well, they played better. Okay, well, what's the goal of playing better? Isn't it to win? Because if they win less than the other team, how can we possibly define playing better as losing? That's what you're saying. The goal is to win the baseball games. And the Dodgers won 4 of them. Like, it just kills me. There's people in the chat. The Dodgers need a new hitting coach. You know, the Dodgers hitting coach has won 2 straight World Series. Like, again, I'm not saying he's the entire reason they've done it, but like, things are working and it could work better. Yes, but they literally just won the World Series. So let's just hang out there. I got some more. Will Smith, only extra inning home run in Game 7 in MLB history. This was from Jason Stark. Baseball Reference has a metric known as championship win probability added. Will Smith's home run is number 1 all-time among World Series home run ever hit in the 9th inning or later. It increased the Dodgers World Series championship odds by 41.3%.
Wow.
Miguel Rojas, by the way, was 3rd on that list. Rojas just ahead of Joe Carter's home run and Kirk Gibson's home run. We're going to talk greatest moments, but that goes to show you Game 7, all this stuff gets amped up compared to a Game 1 or a Game 2 home run. I'll just fire a few more. Yamamoto did his thing in Game 6 and Game 7. This is maybe the stupidest stat I've ever heard. Yoshinobu Yamamoto led the Dodgers in outs recorded in back-to-back games in the World Series. That's so stupid. Like, he got 8 outs, which was more than any other Dodger pitcher in Game 7. I did not realize that. He's getting compared to Randy Johnson, who did the same. Randy Johnson's amazing. Can I just point out, Bruce, that Randy Johnson got 4 outs and not 8 outs in his second game? So shout out to Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Some more. Golden pitch. I love this stat. It's a pitch in which either team can win the World Series based on the pitch. So like with 1 out and a runner on, that means the Dodgers could theoretically turn a double play, or the Blue Jays could get a 2-run home run and win. Yoshinobu Yamamoto fired 7 golden pitches to the final two batters. One was a walk. The other was a double play. Speaking of, the first World Series to end via double play since 1947. It's an interesting stat. The Dodgers season length, the Dodgers season began on March 18th and ended on November 2nd. That's
Wild.
dumb. That's dumb.
Very.
Yeah, I got a couple more. I'll let you go first, Anthony, because I know you've got a couple.
Yeah. Bruce took the only stat that I was going to use, which was the Heyman one. That's a good one. So I'm glad you got it in there. The other thing I want to talk about is a narrative, and in discussing, what the rest of baseball is doing versus what the Dodgers are doing. And in watching the parade today and listening to these guys speak, I really think that what we saw today and what we saw throughout the course of the postseason emphasizes the culture that Andrew Friedman, the Guggenheim Group, Dave Roberts and his coaches, and all the veterans in the clubhouse have established for this organization. It really is a different kind of thing. And I was watching something that talked about, like, not just the penny pinching stuff, but like the culture stuff. Aroldis Chapman just recently came out and said if he has to go play for the Yankees again, he would just retire. The Red Sox and how the whole Deaver stuff went down. Yeah. Dave Dombrowski saying what he said about Bryce Harper. That stuff never happens with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Never. And I think that, like, I had never really thought of it in that context. But aside from, like, having these outstanding leaders and, Miguel Rojas, who I came to really appreciate as a leader, because earlier in the season, I did not think he was that guy. I was proven very wrong, not just because of his home run, but because of the stuff that other guys have said about him throughout this whole run. I think we just didn't get to see that, right? And no, we're not supposed to. And so a lot of respect to him and to guys like Kershaw and Mookie Betts and those other guys who may not be those guys all the time publicly, but are those guys in the clubhouse. And really, I think it goes a long way in talking about what this organization is, that they don't ever have those kinds of issues. And it's not a coincidence that this run of dominance, not just the World Series, but the division titles, that's not by accident. None of this is a coincidence, and none of this is just because they spend money.
Yeah. I say it all the time. There's lots of teams that spend money and fail. Like, there's some teams that spend money and succeed. The Blue Jays, third highest payroll in Major League Baseball or something like that. But, like, go look at the Mets the last couple of years. Go look at the Padres. Go look at some of these other franchises that have tried to spend significant amounts of money and failed. Even the Braves, who, like, were a really good team. Things went wrong for them and they didn't work themselves out. So, Bruce, any other things that jumped out to you, narratives or stats?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. This was the second straight year that not to take away from anything the Dodgers did, but a fundamental breakdown for the other team helped push the Dodgers over the edge. This one was even bigger than last year, the fifth inning for the Yankees. The Dodgers are already ahead in the series, and that just helped kind of put the icing on the cake. This year, the Blue Jays ran the bases so poorly in the ninth inning that they pretty much robbed themselves of a World Series. And Miguel Rojas made a fantastic play on the ground ball with the bases loaded in the bottom of the ninth inning. Like I said, I don't want to take any credit away from that, because the Dodgers took advantage of what they were given and they won the World Series because of it. But the base running by the Blue Jays in that ninth inning was so poor. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa was maybe 3 steps off of third base, did not take a walking lead, was not reading down angle off the bat to get going on a ground ball. He did it so poorly. He slid into home plate on a force play, no reason to slide there at all, rather than just running straight through home plate. If he did any one of those things, that's like 4 things I just listed. He didn't need to do all 4. If he did any one of them, the Blue Jays would have walked it off right there. And like I said, I don't want to make it sound like that I'm trying to say the Blue Jays lost this World Series more than the Dodgers won it, because the Dodgers took advantage of what they were given and they won the World Series because Miguel Rojas made a great play when the Blue Jays didn't do what they needed to do. I just thought it was interesting, and I would imagine that everybody in Toronto and in Canada is going to be thinking about that breakdown of fundamentals, not just Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. I don't think he deserves targeted hate, because this isn't an IKF failure. It's a Blue Jays failure.
Totally.
Their third base coach, their entire operation needed to be better there. And they let down their city and gave up a World Series because they weren't fundamentally prepared.
Yeah. and Barger the night before, right? Like it's the exact
Yep.
same sort of thing. Michael's got a stat in the chat, by the way. No team who swept the NLCS had ever won the World Series until now. I remember looking up, I think I said this on here, all the teams that had won, like, the Dodgers were 9-1 going in. And it was like, I would look through is this the best start to a postseason ever? And I'm looking through all these other ones and I'm like, oh, all of these teams lost in the World Series. Like nobody had ever been awesome in the first few rounds and then won the World Series. So Dodgers break that streak as well. Some more thoughts for me. I wrote down so many because I thought it was so interesting. Just the fact in Game 7, the Dodgers' first lead in this game came in the 11th inning. They were down 3 at one point. They were down to 2 outs left. The winning run was 90 feet away with 1 out, and then the Dodgers won. Ken Rosenthal kind of summing up the grit of this Dodgers team. Yamamoto, 130 pitches spread out over 28 hours. Glasnow, the first time he's ever gone back-to-back days. Ohtani on 3 days rest. Snell's first relief appearance since 2019. Will Smith catching 73 innings. And then Mookie playing shortstop because that's where the need was for this team. He just is listing off all of the sacrifices that were made to get to this point. And then again, the last one, back-to-back World Series champs for the first time since the Yankees. That was before they expanded the postseason, not once, but twice. So even going back-to-back, which the Yankees did, it was a different ball game. They didn't have a wild card round to get through on top of everything else. So incredible stuff. Anthony, any more from you, news and notes before we go top plays of the postseason?
No, the only thing quickly is I think as of right now, and there's a whole winter ahead of us, but the Dodgers on paper right now, the payroll is going to be like almost $100 million less than it was this season. When they three-peat, and if they don't do a whole ton of stuff to add payroll, and they're not the big bad, they're still spending a ton of money, but like if they're not the top 3 team in payroll, which it's very possible that they are not, I'd like to see where the narrative goes then.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Bruce, I know you got to run here in a sec. Any last thoughts, news, notes from Game 7 you want to touch on?
Really, I thought it was interesting, and I wanted to touch on your point real quick about the Dodgers had to go through way more postseason rounds, and it's a much different game now, and I think it's a good reason why it's going to be a long time, and it may not ever happen again for a team to go back-to-back like this. So just appreciate the fact that the Dodgers, against all odds, made it through. We've seen already over this dynasty the Dodgers have now, where after they won the pennant in 2017 and 18, that 2019 team felt invincible and they lost in the division series. And there's just certain natural barriers in baseball that it's very hard to win consistently like this. So for the Dodgers to have won back-to-back, it's already been said a lot, but this is truly a unique and incredible achievement that everybody should try their best not to get lost, and how truly impressive this is, regardless of how well the Dodgers are ran. There's so many things to overcome to make this happen, and it's a remarkable group to have gotten all the way through to back-to-back World Series.
Yeah, it's a great point by you. So, Bruce, we appreciate you hopping on. I know you got to run and prep for some other stuff, so we appreciate you. We will chat with you soon. Enjoy the rest of your night. Anthony and I are going to stick around. We'll get to some super chats and stuff like that as well. Let's get to super chats, and then we'll get to some top moments here. Larry with a great question. Which clip do you think you'll view the most? Freddie's home run, Kiké's double play, Rojas's home run, Page's catch, Smith's home run, or Mookie's double play? What do you think you'll see the most, Anthony, from this point forward?
This is a good question. I think probably Will Smith's home run, just because it was the game winner, and that's what people will play when you watch things. But I think from and Mookie's double play probably, and with Yamamoto's reaction right after that. But I think probably the thing I'll look most fondly on is probably Rojas's home run, because of just the unexpectedness of all of that, and them being down to the final out and all of that stuff. And we, a lot of us thinking this World Series might be over for us.
Yeah. We'll see which ones make it into the new intro for next year.
Yeah.
But Mookie's double play, because it's the last one, and Freddie's home run, because it was a walk-off in the 18th, jumped to front of mind for me. But again, we're going to talk most important moments, memorable moments here in a second, and I'll just say those two aren't number one on the list. The runner on second says, can someone teach Tom Verducci how to say Yoshinobu's name? We'll pass the note along, but that's a fair question. Mamad, is it too early to talk about the Dodgers offseason? Who should Andrew Friedman go after in a trade and free agents to make sure the Dodgers can go back to back-to-back. Trust Genius with a similar question. What free agents do the Dodgers have? You mentioned the payroll coming off. Clayton Kershaw is a free agent. That's like $20 million. Conforto, $17 million. I know everybody's hoping he'll resign. Kirby Yates had a big deal. He will be gone. Kiké Hernández, a free agent. Hard to imagine he's not back. Miguel Rojas listed as a free agent, but I thought he had an option of some sort, a team option or a player option.
I'm guessing he's back. Yeah,
I think Rojas will be back, and then Kopech is also a free agent, which I think is less sure. So
I mean, there's some guys there's some non-tender candidates that are names that we're familiar with, so we may be surprised if it happens. But given what the roster construction and depth looks like, we may be surprised at some of the names that could potentially be non-tendered.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of those names, this is MLB trade rumors. Gratterall, that I don't think that's going to happen. But Tony Gonsolin, Evan Phillips, Anthony Bonda, Brock Stewart, Ben Rortvedt, Michael Grove. Again, I don't think most of those guys are going to be in consideration. But
Chris Taylor's also comes off too. Although I think they owe $4 million on that, but that'll be the only hit they take from the rest of that deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, keep in mind all the guys who are on the 60-day IL are going to need to be, I don't know if it's today or whenever, but at some point, those guys all need to come back onto the 40-man roster. And they have a lot of guys on the 60-day IL. So there's lots of room that they need to be opening up. David asks, anyone else want to have TJ hot dogs or street tacos with Alejandro Kirk? I mean, wherever that guy's eating, I'm interested. Sign me up.
Yeah.
So Keith says, do you think McCourt charged Ice Cube $110 for parking? Perfect question.
Is that what it was for today?
I mean, that's what
I saw. It was 80 for the World Series.
Yeah. I think there was something that was higher. Maybe that was like premium parking or something was $110.
Premium parking was always like $20 higher or something like that. But if it was 110 for general parking, that is criminal.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the Dodgers parking lot situation. It seems like so.
Yeah, we know who benefits there.
Well, the Dodgers are 2025 World Series champions. It seems only fitting, Anthony, to go back and talk about the biggest moments, not just of the World Series, but of the postseason as a whole. And I'll be honest, Anthony, when I originally set out to make this list, I had watched Sportsnet LA and I was thinking, I can make a top 10. Let's get to 10 most important moments from the World Series. And then I was like, I got way more than 10 that need to be on this list. And I was like, and then there were some important moments from the rest of the postseason as well. And so why I ended up on this number, I do not know. But let me present to you my top 21 plays from the 2025 postseason. I'm going to start at the top and then we'll roll down. And I created the list. You are allowed to react. Tell me what you think about this. But number one, to me, was the easiest decision on this entire list. Actually, let me rephrase that. Was not the easiest decision in real time. But as I've had time to think about this, it's the easiest decision. I've got Miguel Rojas's game-tying home run in Game 7 as the number one moment of the 2025 postseason, simply because the Dodgers were 2 outs away from losing the World Series. And the only reason they didn't is because Miguel Rojas hit a home run. To me, the only question is not, is it number one on this list, Anthony? It's, was this the biggest home run in franchise history? Is this ahead of Kirk Gibson and Freddie Freeman's walk-off grand slam last year? To me, that's the question.
Yeah, and I saw that question posed today. I agree with you on the number one for that home run. Given the circumstances, I can't think of a bigger home run, because both Freddie and Gibson were game ones, and had they not hit those, there's still a chance those teams win the World Series. If Miggy doesn't hit that home run and he flies out, the game's over, and the Dodgers lose.
Yeah.
And we're having a conversation now about how big of a disappointment this season was.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm with you. I cannot think of a bigger home run that I know about in franchise history.
Yeah. And I think it's not as iconic. And I think we can separate these two things. Like, I think Kirk Gibson's home run is more iconic. Freddie Freeman's walk-off grand slam, because of the circumstances, because it's a grand slam, because of the pose, because it's the Yankees, all those things, more iconic. But as far as the most important home runs in postseason history, Dodgers history, this is the only one that you can draw a straight line from. If this doesn't happen, they lose. And so for that reason, Miguel Rojas is number one on my list. I'm curious for you, what would be number two on this list? And keep in mind, I would say that some of these are individual plays And some of these are kind of like extended performances in the midst of a game. That would be my hint to what some of these options might be. What would you have number 2 on your list?
Up until yesterday, up until Game 7, my number 2 would have been Shohei Ohtani's Game 4 against the Brewers.
Okay.
It's not that anymore after Game 7. It is Yoshinobu Yamamoto's extended performance throughout the entirety of this postseason.
Yeah. I broke up performances by game, and I tried to stick to play. But I have Yamamoto's Game 7 performance in particular as the number 2 moment from the 2025 postseason. Because coming back on no day's rest, getting them 8 outs, getting the ground into a double play to end it, to me, listening to other players talk about it, Anthony, that has to be number 2 on my list, given the way that it will be remembered by players. They are telling you what they think about that moment, and the best in the world are looking at what Yamamoto did and saying basically the same things they were saying about Ohtani's crazy performance, except this one came in Game 7 of the World Series. This was unicorn, alien type stuff, robot type stuff, I think Blake Snell said, for Yamamoto. So he's number 2 for me. Number 3 for me is the Will Smith home run, because at some point you can't get too far down this list without talking about the guy who, hit the go-ahead home run in Game 7 of the World Series in the 11th inning. So Smith is number 3 for me. Then I've got Freddie Freeman's walk-off home run in the 18th inning as number 4 on my list. And then number 5, I've got the Game 6 game-ending double play. So those are my top 5. Rojas home run, Yamamoto Game 7.
Postseason, and Ohtani's greatest baseball game ever played isn't on it.
Say those 2 again.
That's your top 5 for that's postseason, right?
Postseason
not just
as a whole. Those 5 are on this ahead of Ohtani's greatest performance ever, because I think the question that you have to do is like, how do you weight the fact that Ohtani's greatest game ever came in the NLCS and not the World Series? And all of these, every play I just said was either a walk-off home run in the 18th inning or happened in Game 6 or 7 with the team on the verge of elimination.
And that's fair. But then you can, like, by that context, there's a whole bunch of, there's 17 other plays in Game 7, I think, that could go on this list. Ohtani's was like unquestionably the greatest baseball game ever played by a single individual player. And then also, if we're talking, okay, well, it was like, it didn't come in the World Series. The guy got on base 9 times in one game in the World Series too.
We're going to get there. Get there. And this is, again, I think it's how you weight.
Absolutely. These are fun lists right here. Absolutely. Totally. I totally agree with you.
So 5, I've got the Game 6 game-ending double play.
I say that, sorry to interrupt you. I say that to say how incredible this whole postseason run is, that those moments are not yet mentioned.
Totally. And again, I set out to come up with the list of 10, and we get to 21, folks. I promise you're going to get to 21, and you're going to have something.
In honor of Walker Buehler.
So number 6, I have Andy Pages' catch, because I cannot emphasize enough that if that catch does not happen, the Dodgers lose the World Series. So you could say Ohtani played the greatest game ever. How can this be behind Pages' catch? And I would just simply tell you, if Pages doesn't truck stick Kiké in that moment, none of it matters. Ohtani's greatest game ever goes down and gets forgotten about, basically, if not. So I've got Pages 6, and then I have one more thing.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
We called Rojas' home run maybe the biggest home run in Dodger history. Is that catch the biggest defensive play in Dodgers history?
I'm not a historian, so I'll preface that. I think the answer has to be yes. I can remember some iconic 2020 catches. Bellinger robbing a home run in dead center field off of Tatis. Mookie Betts making a couple plays up against the right field wall.
Yeah.
But to me, from a defensive play perspective, it's hard to argue, because I can't. If he
doesn't catch it, they lose the World Series again. To that earlier point,
you cannot separate it from the fact that the entirety of the World Series depended on that catch getting made. So for me, the answer is yes to that one. Number 7, the last thing I have before the greatest game ever played. Yes, that is number 8 on my list. And this is where you can tell me it's crazy. I have Will Klein 7th. I can't move Will Klein 4 shutout innings in Game 3 of the World Series and throwing more than 2 times more pitches than he's ever thrown in his life before. This is where you can tell me that has to go below Ohtani's greatest game ever, and I might be willing to listen. But Will Klein at 7, 4 shutout innings, that has to be there.
That was an incredible performance. It's not even better than Ohtani's second best performance of this postseason.
You might be right. You might be right, but it was Will Klein, and I'm going to remember it. And as I've said sometimes before, this is my list. So that's what we're going with. Eighth is the first moment we get to that was not the World
I will
Series.
say real quick, and I know I keep interrupting you because these things keep popping into my head as we go. But to Will Klein being on this list, I'm so, aside from like obviously we want the Dodgers to win the World Series, I'm so glad that they won so that Will Klein's performance is not in vain and forgotten about. It will now live on in Dodger lore forever. Because of the context of who he is, what the game was, all of that stuff. But had they lost this, no one would have even remembered that in 2 years.
Totally agree. And I said the same thing about Freddie Freeman's home run in the 18th inning. Like Max Muncy's home run in the 18th inning from a number of years ago. It's like, oh yeah, that happened. I remember.
I don't even look at that fondly because of how the rest of that series went.
Exactly. So number 8, and people are going to hate this, is Ohtani playing the greatest game ever. This is the NLDS Game 4. 3 home runs, 10. Was it NLDS or NLCS? CS, excuse me. NLCS Game 4, 3 home runs, 10 strikeouts from one player. Pretty good. Number 8 on my list. Argue about it in the comments below. Apologies if I offended you. Number 9 on this list is Shohei Ohtani reaching 9 times in game number 3. He had 2 homers. He had 2 doubles. He was walked 5 times. One of the best offensive performances ever in the World Series, if not the best offensive performance in the World Series. So again, should be higher. I don't know. I don't know what I'm taking off. Number 10 for me is Yamamoto's complete game in game 2 of the World Series. Back-to-back complete games, all of that. But in that moment, the Dodgers get smoked in game number 1. Let's not forget. For him to come back, Anthony, in game number 2 and throw a complete game, that's why Yamamoto gets a second moment in the top 10 for me.
Yeah, and it was partly why I just lumped all of his together as the second best moment for me. But if we're separating them, I think for me, this would have to go higher, like in the top 5, because I think they got absolutely stunned in game 1 because you have a guy who you send to the mound to open the series who you think this guy can maybe get us 8.
Yeah.
And he gets blitzed. And now you're looking at in Toronto, if you lose this game, the World Series might be done. And he spins an absolute gem for you.
Yeah.
And so to the talk about the context mattering, I think this matters because I think if they lose that game, they probably don't win the World Series.
So would that be higher than Ohtani's greatest game ever for you? Or Pages' catch? or Freddie's home run?
It's higher than Freddie's home run, absolutely.
Okay.
For me. Yeah.
Okay.
I think like the individual performance stuff, like Ohtani's, it's the greatest game ever played. And it happened in a post, like, right. So like you have to put that high somewhere. But given the context with all of this, like, I put that game 2 performance from Yamamoto in that top 5, because again, I think that the World Series is done if he does not give them that, because also those runs, they got to 5 runs, I think, in that game, but a few of those runs came a little later.
Yeah.
And I mean, those were all high stress innings in terms of like where the game stood.
Yeah. So here's my challenge to people too. Is put your list in the comments below and let's compare these, because Anthony is not doing this and I respect what he is saying. It's easy to say that has to be top 5. That has to be top 5. That has to be top 5. And then all of a sudden you're going to have 12 things in your top 5. So give me a list below and then we could talk. So 10 is Yamamoto's complete game in game 2. Number 11 for me is Max Muncy hitting a home run in the 8th inning of game 7. It's going to be the forgotten home run. I am trying to make it my mission that it is not forgotten.
Yeah.
Because if he does not hit that home run, the Dodgers most likely lose the World Series. Has to be in there. Number 12, probably a little high, but I'm biased. Clayton Kershaw escaping the bases loaded 2-out jam in game 3. If we're talking moments, the fact that it's Kershaw, the fact that he's coming into this game in Dodger Stadium with all that pressure, with literally no wiggle room whatsoever, and gets out of the jam, that's number 12 for me. Number 13 for me, Rojas' throw home in game 7 of the World Series. To your point, we talked. There's a lot of things that go into this, whether the guy should have been further off the bag, whether he should have gotten a better lead. Will Smith, by the way, sneaky moment, was this close to being the absolute GOAT of the World Series, and then it flipped and he became the other type of GOAT a few innings later when he hit the walk-off, or excuse me, the go-ahead home run. So I've got Muncy home run 11th, Kershaw bases loaded jam 12th, Rojas' throw home 13th. This is where we leave the World Series one more time. I'm not saying this was a great performance. The key is top plays, top moments. Pages grounding out to Owen Kerkering in game 4 of the NLDS. When you think back on this, you're going to remember that play. Nothing good happened from the Dodgers' perspective, other than that they won. But to me, that's 14th, and then 15th, and then I'll let you react, was the Teoscar to Tommy to Will relay to get the guy at home in Game 3 of the World Series. So, again, Muncy, Kershaw, Rojas' throw home in Game 7, Kerkering, NLDS Game 4, and then the 3-man relay to throw the guy out at the plate by a mile in Game 3.
Yeah, I think the Kershaw stuff is the sentimental pick. It was obviously a big spot, but I think it's probably when discussing all of these things, like it's probably the sentimental spot in your lineup here. I would have Roki's performance in that Phillies game above the Pages swinging bunt.
We're gonna get there. It's on my list. It's in my top 21.
Yeah. Just because of how incredible and I think almost kind of unexpected it was that he had to go get 9 outs and he was perfect.
Yep, absolutely. 16th for me, Will Smith, Game 2 home run in the World Series. I had forgotten about this one, admittedly. Gausman had retired 17 guys in a row in Game 2, and then Will Smith, this was the Yamamoto game to your point, and then Will Smith hits a home run, and then Max Muncy hits a home run to go ahead. So everything we said about Yamamoto in Game 2, this is the offensive side of that, where the Dodgers are down 1-0. It looks like Gausman is going to kill them, and then all of a sudden Will Smith hits a home run. Big stuff there. Number 17, Tommy Edman throwing the guy out at third in Game 3 of the World Series. That was a huge play, as well. Number 18 was Game 6, Yamamoto's performance. Again, somebody could tell me this is way higher. 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run. I'm not discounting this performance. I want to make abundantly clear. Half of the plays above this feel like the entire World Series hinged on it. This was in the same vein. 6 innings, 1 earned from Yamamoto in Game 6. That's my 16, 17, 18. Will Smith, Game 2 homer, Edman throwing the guy out at third, and then Yamamoto in Game 6. My guess is you're going to tell me Yamamoto Game 6 needs to be higher on this list. And as I read this out loud, Anthony, I'll be honest, I think I agree with you.
Yeah, the Yamamoto performance needs to be higher. It's funny, though, because it's like it was almost a little bit like from a statistical standpoint, that was not his best performance in the World Series or in the postseason, right? He was coming off of 2 complete games. But yeah, obviously considering the circumstances, and they were a game, was an elimination game for the Dodgers. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. It's worth pointing out that, by the way, 16 of this 18 are all World Series moments, which just goes to show you both how iconic this World Series was, how many crazy moments and plays there were, but also to some degree how kind of ho-hum the first 3 rounds. Like, I went looking and I'm like, I mean, there's nothing in the Red Series that's of note. The Brewers,
I thought Ohtani's Game 1 was fantastic. Like, he opened the playoffs with the home run.
Totally. But again, it's like, I'm not discounting the things that aren't on this list. I think it just goes to show, like, when we're talking about Tommy Edman throwing a guy out from shallow right field, throwing a guy out at third in Game 3 of the World Series, like, that's always going to be way higher on the list, and that's 17th for me. 3 more on this list. Number 19, a couple people have mentioned, NLDS Game 2. It's the wheel play. Bottom of the 9th, up by 1, perfectly executed by the Dodgers. That's number 19. Number 20, you've referenced already, Roki Sasaki throwing 3 perfect innings in Game 4 of the NLDS. I didn't know this. In 10 2/3 in the postseason, Roki Sasaki had a 0.8 ERA for the Dodgers. 3 innings there. That's the lasting image in my mind of Roki Sasaki, was him standing looking like he was ready to pitch with his glove on the entire time in the dugout. That's beautiful. Number 20 for me. And then number 21, a moment that I nearly forgot, but I think deserves to be on this list. It's from the NLDS. It's game number 1. It's Teoscar Hernández. He hit a 3-run home run. This is a while ago. I don't expect people to totally remember this. The Dodgers were down 3-2 in the 7th in Game 1 of the NLDS, and Teo hit a 3-run home run to go from down 3-2 to up 5-3. They win that game. It obviously sets the tone for the rest of that series, and the Dodgers win 3-1. So that's how I finish out my top 21. Again, intended to be a top 10. Too many. Is there anything that, like, as you hear this list, you're like, I can't believe this thing is not on there?
Not, I can't believe it. I think your list is pretty comprehensive. We know now where I stand on what I think should be higher or what should be lower, which is all good. The one thing I would probably include somewhere, maybe it's a top 22 for me. But I thought Tyler Glasnow's 3 pitches to get out of that incredible jam to to win game 6, right?
Yeah, and I had the double play as number 5, so maybe we just lump in Glass
Yeah,
Kiké,
that's fair.
Rojas into one place.
Yeah, that's fair, because I thought that was took huge stones to go in there and do that. I also think, like, we need to stop questioning this guy's whatever it is that you're questioning about him that makes everybody think like he's not a guy. Because that was not an easy situation to come into, especially as a starting pitcher. And I think he mentioned today he had to go. He was on with the Sportsnet guys after the stage celebration, and they asked him about that, and he was like, "Yeah, it was like the adrenaline kicked in as soon as the phone rang." And he's like, when you're a starter, you're used to like, okay, I got the ball in my hands 45 minutes before first pitch and all of this stuff. And he's like, I had to get hot in 10 pitches or whatever, and come in and get out of that. So I thought that performance, and then now understanding that he was not completely healthy, and then he still came in and pitched in game 7. We have to shake this guy's soft thing. We have one real piece of evidence that like he might have been mentally weak, and that was in that Phillies game at the beginning of this season when it was raining and the whole mud in the cleats and all of that, blah, blah, blah. Aside from all that, the guy's had legitimate injuries, and when he's not been hurt, he's been fantastic as a Dodger.
Yeah, absolutely. Some others that
I think his postseason ERA this year was in the ones.
It was coming into the World Series. I think it ended up a little bit higher than that because of the starting. And I mean, every inherited runner in the World Series, I think, ended up scoring on those guys. Some other stuff that didn't get mentioned. Obviously, Yamamoto's first complete game, probably deserving of mention. I would add like Blake Snell's first 2 appearances in the postseason were like 2 of the most dominant appearances I've ever seen from any pitcher ever.
That game against the Brewers and that game score being as high as it was, like that was the stuff of like historic, like legend. Like, I mean, that was a fantastic performance, and Dave robbed him of a complete game there.
Yep, it's true. Snell in game 1 probably ends up on this list, if not for some of those reasons. So that's my list. Let me know in the comments below. I want to hear from some people. What did I mess up? What are the plays I'm missing? And before you tell me something deserves to be in the top 5 or the top 10, you better leave me in your comments what your top 5 and your top 10 are, and we'll talk about it down there. All right, let's get to some super chats, Anthony, and then we'll get to some questions, and we'll get out of here. Don't Care 187. Happy birthday, Roki. Bye, Lalo, Rocky. Miggy Rose sings. That was a great moment. Another technical difficulties moment from today. Like, he's like, play that song, and the DJ's like, what do you want? Happy birthday? That's what I thought he was saying.
Yeah,
you know? So tough. Kevin says the claw will be missed. Absolutely. The GOAT, Clayton Kershaw. Get me all of the content on Clayton Kershaw. Arun, just in, Yamamoto starting game 8. Back to my Lakers. My poor friends up here in Portland. Lakers in Portland tonight. Reeves is out. Luka's out. LeBron's out. Yikes. Raul, I paid $70 preferred parking at the celebration today. General parking, $35. Canceled trip in April to Toronto. Spring training, a better option. Go Dodgers. Hey, if you go to spring training, there's a chance. We had a crew from Dodger Blue that made it down there last year. And so we'll try and get those dates out to people ahead of time, and maybe we can put some stuff together for while we're down there. Because that
I think it'd be great if we all were able to get down there together and do some live shows in person. That'd be cool.
Totally. That'll be the goal. JF, Yamamoto's complete game in Milwaukee after the Churio leadoff home run deserves to be mentioned as well. Absolutely. Again, it's like the Dodgers starting pitching staff for me. It's not so much that these things weren't great. It's just trying to communicate like the number of significant things. Again, 16 of my 18 plays were from the World Series.
Yeah.
That the series was just so insane. Game 3, 18
It was 7 games.
Yes, the number of things in game 3, the number of things in game 6, the number of things in game 7 was just overwhelming. And so lots to choose from there. LA Platypus, wish MLB gave a full postseason MVP like the NHL. Who do you think that deserves that award this year and last?
Yamamoto.
This year, I think you'd have Yamamoto. Shohei's like the breadth of numbers that Shohei put up when you factor in the best game ever. He had 8 home runs in the postseason, which is like an insane number, and was pitching.
During one of his at-bats in game 7, they mentioned his OPS in for the postseason, and it was like 1,200 at the time.
Yes. So I mean, I'm not I'm not arguing with the pick of Yamamoto because I think that like ultimately is the correct answer. I was just trying to see. Yeah, Ohtani had 176 weighted runs created plus, and he had a 1096 OPS for the postseason. He had 8 home runs, 14 RBIs, 13 runs. So I mean, basically, Vlad Guerrero and him. I mean, Vladdy's numbers are stupid. He had like a 1300 OPS. It felt like it.
Yeah, crazy.
I think it would be Ohtani or Yamamoto. I would probably lean Yamamoto, and part of me wonders, is that just like the bias of like Ohtani can't win every single award? At some point, you have to give it to somebody else, and if so, the tiebreaker goes to Yamamoto and what he did. But that's an interesting debate. I think those are the only two guys. Out of curiosity,
I think the World Series performance with the four appearances for what
3
was it?
appearances
3
and then
appearances
warming
for
up.
Yamamoto. Yeah, I think that for me that puts it over the top, especially coming back on 0 days rest and getting not just like 3 outs, but getting 8.
Yeah,
and being
3
on the
wins.
mound when they won it all.
3 wins for Yamamoto. He had a 1.45 ERA in 37 and a third innings. Yamamoto did. So
and that includes a kind of a clunker against the Phillies too.
Yep, absolutely. 2024. I mean, I joke with, obviously Freddie hits the big home run, but he had been pretty bad before that. I always remind people that Mookie Betts led all of the Dodgers in OPS last season in the so
he didn't have a great World Series, but it was probably Mookie Betts. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the best pitcher the Dodgers had, like obviously it was all the bullpen dogs, but it was Yamamoto. He had like a 3.9 ERA last year. Jack Flaherty was I mean, he had some clunkers in there. He ended up with a 7 ERA. I don't remember that number being that high, but he got shelled a couple of times. So, and obviously Ohtani, there were a lot of struggles from Ohtani last year. As far as Dodger hitters go, I mean, Mookie led the team in weighted runs created plus at 151. Tommy Edman, he won the NLCS MVP, so he'd be in the mix. But I would guess Mookie Betts would be the pick for the 2024.
that one would have felt kind of like a.
Can we just give it to the entire bullpen? Would have been
and also like no one was so great that they run away with this thing. Where I think this year you can go like if you pick Ohtani, like the numbers bear that out, and if you go Yamamoto, the numbers bear that out too.
Yeah, absolutely. The runner on second said, "Is the organization giving the left field wall in Toronto a ring?" Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The gap between the base of the wall and center field also deserving of some credit. Cole said, "Starter after starter coming in from the pen with Kershaw warming in the 11th. Goosebumps and tears. When is the movie?" I will say, I don't believe there's an Apple TV documentary that was filmed during the World Series this year. I think we knew about that prior to. So I hope there's some sort of document. I mean, they've obviously, Fox Sports has all the footage. They did last year, I guess. They did
a really good one. It was a little more than a half an hour. And it was really good. It was just basically like every big play throughout the entire run. It was really good. It's still up now. You can go find it. It's really, really cool. But yeah, I don't think that there was any like documentary crew for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to some questions. All caps questions. If you've got any, we'll answer a few of these before we take off for the night. One announcement, just so people know. Tomorrow night, we are going to be live again at 7:10 p.m. And we're going to have a special guest for part of that show. That's going to be Todd Lights. Todd, if you don't know, is the PA announcer for Dodger Stadium. He's going to be hopping on with us live. So you're going to have 10 or 15 minutes for you guys to ask some questions to the Dodger Stadium PA announcer, Todd Lights. So go ahead, put that in your calendar. That's our normal Tuesday night show there. Let's get to some questions. Let's see. Paul, first ever super chat on any show on any streaming service. By my count, Toronto took 99 at bats across the series after the 7th inning, and they scored 1 run. So,
I mean, I don't, we assuming this stat is correct, the better team didn't win narrative is so stupid because like it's stuff like this too. Like they made a ton of mistakes, like we talked about earlier, and then like this kind of stuff, like that narrative. I don't know why it started or how it even got started, but it's just not true.
I love the people that were coming back at me on Twitter for saying that I thought the Dodgers had a better offense than the Blue Jays. And they're like, well, now do you admit that you're wrong? And I'm like,
no,
the Dodgers offense was bad, but like I don't understand what the Blue Jays show. Honestly, they had a 9-run inning in game 1. And if you take away the 9-run inning in game 1, these two offenses both sucked as far as I was concerned. So anyways, they probably play better than the Dodgers, but like, again, like not well enough to like prove anything. Maybe it's just me. Jason says, 2026 center fielder, Harrison Bader. Is it too soon to talk about defense? I do think outfield, Anthony, if there's one spot they're going to try and address, it's going to have to be outfield, because whether they believe Tommy Edman can handle a full season in center field will be a part of this. Pages is going to be in the mix. Teoscar Hernandez is under contract. So that feels like you would like to get to a place where those two guys are your corner outfielders. However, Pages did improve enough for me, Anthony, to say if they can find a corner outfielder to put alongside Pages in center field, I can live with that. I've seen enough from Pages defensively to say I can live with that.
Yeah, and he's 24, I think, something like that. I'm with you. I've seen enough to think that he can develop into a pretty good center fielder. Maybe not a Gold Glover, but like more than serviceable. His speed and his arm play out there. I think it's just for him at this point, maybe getting more reps, more innings out there. So yeah, if they can go get a competent left fielder or right fielder, and maybe they move Teo over, I would be totally fine with that. But if they also went and got a legitimate center fielder and moved Andy Pages to right field, like that would be great too.
And if you go center fielder, it's probably a Bader type where you're kind of just punting on the offense from that position and saying, let's just go get an elite glove at a premium position. Not quite like Justin Dean level punting, but like a Harrison Bader who is a major league. You're hoping and crossing your fingers you get a league average season. I know he was much better than that this year.
Yeah. And we don't know. I don't know that this is ever, I've ever seen him discuss this, but like, we don't know what the level of want to play center field is for Tommy Edman. Maybe he wants to play second base. Like, I don't know what any of that is or if it might factor into it, but you do technically have an answer on your current roster under contract.
Yeah. Kevin asks, what would be the perfect offseason for you, Anthony? I have not gotten there. I'm going to just be perfectly honest. I have not done a deep dive. I know Kyle Tucker is the name that's floating around. I've mentioned Jarren Duran as a guy that it feels like there's just a match between what the Red Sox need and what the Dodgers need. Duran's a guy who can go play center field. He's more of a platoon bat, but he's like a plus glove and can hit from one side of the plate. And so the Red Sox like desperately need pitching. So it feels like between all these, Kasperius, Robleski, like types that the Dodgers have, that there might be a deal there with the Red Sox. But other than those couple of names, I haven't done a look.
Yeah. I'm not a big Duran fan. I agree that his profile fits a need.
Yeah.
The Dodgers also take character into consideration in these things. And I don't know that he's a bad dude, but like, he doesn't rub me like quite the right way as like, so who knows? Maybe they take a risk on something like that too. But I'm with you. I haven't taken like a too hard of a dive other than like, just things that have been on your mind over the course of the season. Obviously they need a left fielder. I don't want Kyle Tucker necessarily, unless it's like, hey, here's a 3-year deal. But yeah, look, there's obviously places that they can go. They can, I don't think they're going to spend big money on the bullpen. I think they're going to hope for bounce back seasons and guys to get healthy.
Yeah.
Where have you heard this before?
Yeah.
But I think that they can address needs though with that glutton of starting pitching. And I think they probably do make some moves out of that.
And look, they're going to have to move some of those guys again. They have so many guys coming off the 60-day injured list that they have to make room for on the 40-man roster. And so once you get to that place, I mean, again, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys that are definitely coming off of the 40-man roster. But when you factor in the number of guys, like, let me just see if I can pull it up real quick. The number of guys that were on the 60-day injured list: Frasso, Gonsolin, Gratterall, Grove, Kyle Hurt, Evan Phillips, River Ryan, Gavin Stone. So they've got 7 guys coming off and 8 guys on the 60-day IL. And that's before they do literally anything else. And so how they navigate that, I think some of these guys, like a Nick Frasso, for example, I'll be curious to see what they do with him. Michael Grove seems like a guy they liked. He missed the entire season. What do they do with him? Tony Gonsolin. And then you've got some other names that are on the 60. I mean, like, people are going to hate to hear this, but like, Will Klein is a guy who bounced around. Like everybody hated this when we talked about Honeywell. Honeywell wasn't in the league. I think Klein will be in the league. He has options remaining. Bobby Miller's an interesting name to see how they decide to navigate that. So you go up and down that group. And then on the other side, again, I'm not going to be popular for saying this name out loud, but like Ben Rortvedt, I'm not sure is like a guaranteed lock to be on the 40-man roster next year.
I'm with you. Yeah.
And then they've got Justin Dean, Estuary Ruiz. Those are two more guys that like, I wouldn't be shocked if those guys were not on the 40-man roster. So they have some opportunities to make some moves, but there we go. Or some other guys like a Blake Trinan. Like, do they just eat some money on Blake Trinan and say, we're good. We think the best days are behind you. So stay tuned. This is an interesting one. Set the bar project. Do you think the 2024 Dodgers beat the 2025 Blue Jays, Anthony?
Yeah, because I think the Dodgers offense last year takes full advantage of the big holes that the Jays pitching had.
Well, because it's funny because the offense last year hit 2 points higher in the batting average category than this year.
Yeah, and I also they were facing Garrett Cole threw against them in the World Series. Like, not that the Yankees had a ton of really good arms, but like they had probably some better bullpen arms than the Blue Jays did, I thought. And I thought the Dodgers just missed a ton of mistakes that last year seemed like that they found the barrels.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's interesting because I'm like, man, how would they have pulled that off without the starting pitching that we had this year?
And that's the other part of it is like, I think the Blue Jays offense could have done some damage against the thinness of the Dodgers rotation there. And I think if you stretch that Dodger teams to 7 games, I don't know if the pitching holds up for 7 against the lineup like that.
Yeah, Joseph, a lot of people asking similar questions here about the World Baseball Classic, but how do you think the World Baseball Classic affects this team? Another short offseason for a lot of guys.
Yeah, I would imagine there's going to be some restrictions put on like the guys that go play for Japan. I would imagine.
Which is interesting because we know how much this means to the people of Japan and to those 3 guys.
Yeah. And it may not be so much like, hey, they can't pitch, but they may have, they may get capped. Like, I don't think you're going to see Yoshinobu Yamamoto pitch in one game and then come in for relief in the very next game, right? Like, I think stuff like that will probably be limited. And I think those guys understand why. Like, when they did that before, like, they were still playing in Japan. And so I think the pitching side of it mostly, I think the position players should be fine with everything. But yeah, I hope that there's some caution used, at least with the pitchers.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it could also be like a good thing too, like for a guy like Roki Sasaki to go back into this as a starter, and if he has a good WBC, and I think that really changes expectations for him going into spring training.
Yeah, Jake asked, with the back-to-back completed, do you think there will be a newfound hunger for a three-peat? This is one of the reasons, Anthony. I think they're going to add new guys to this group for this reason, in part because you can't just bring the same guys back and expect them to be as desperate as hungry. I think having a Blake Snell type guy in the mix just adds to the desperation. Obviously, Kershaw's last year adds to it. You're not going to be able to replicate that. And so I think part of the reason you bring new blood in is just to add that hunger back into the group.
I totally agree. Even like this year, even a guy like Tyler Glasnow, who didn't get to throw in the playoffs last season, I think he had that same sort of drive that Snell did. And yeah, you're going to get some new guys no matter what. It's just how things turn over. But I think the reason they've gone out and made some of the moves they've made, Tanner Scott, Shohei Ohtani, obviously those kinds of guys, is to keep this window open as long as possible, even though that, some of these guys are aging. I expect Mookie Betts to have a better offensive season next year. Maybe he's not the MVP caliber offensive guy he has been, but I expect him to be better. I think that's safe to say that everybody can sort of see that. I expect Tanner Scott to be better than he was, and the bar is not high for either of those guys. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I think, there's that. And then you add in the guys that they will add who are hungry for a ring. And look, they're going to get people calling them too. Like, hey, do you need me? Because I want to go chase a ring. Yeah,
absolutely. GI asking about the World Baseball Classic said also thoughts on the MLB Players' Choice Award going to Schwarber for the National League Most Outstanding Player. Cal Raleigh won it in the American League.
So stupid.
Dong says, what do you think Friedman plans for shortstop? And what would you do if you were Friedman? Wondering if he keeps prospects at the deadline to trade for a shortstop in the near future as the Dodgers are aging. I think Mookie Betts plays shortstop for one more season at least. I think he's become a really, really good defender. I think he's athletic enough to handle that position. I also think they have a backup plan in Alex Freeland, who is in-house, who can play that position competently defensively. They've also got Kiké Hernández, Tommy Edman, as long as he's around. So my guess is that it's Mookie Betts is plan A at shortstop, because keep in mind, if Tommy Edman is compromised and is not a guy that they love with the ankle injury, getting healthy, even after it gets healthy, if they don't love him in center field, it really limits your options, because the other plan is Mookie Betts goes to second base. I'll also point out Max Muncy has one more year on his deal, an incredibly affordable player option. And so I think third base is 1 year away from opening up as well. So I don't know if Mookie moves to second then, and then maybe Tommy Edman's playing third. I don't know how they handle that, but I think this year it doesn't make a ton of sense to move Mookie off a short.
No, and I don't think they do. And I think Dong may be asking a longer term question here because there is a hole there, behind Mookie, and not exactly sure how it's going to be filled. I would think Freeland might be more the answer at third base than shortstop. But if the need happens to arise next season, like he's a guy who, like you said, Jeff, can competently play the position. I do think that they go and they figure out a way to get somebody for the longer term, maybe a year from now. But I think too that Mookie Betts, no matter what, probably finishes the last few years of his deal as a second baseman.
Yeah, absolutely. Cole says, never bet against a guy with MLB as his initials. There you go. Well, they pointed out, they said, and don't bet against guys with WS as his initials in the World Series was another thing I heard. So there you go. Cole said, Yamamoto threw the very first pitch to start the season in Japan, the very last pitch in the World Series to end it. Pretty cool stuff there. All right, let's get to a couple more of these questions. Scooter asks, which is more impressive between Bumgarner's World Series in 2014 or Yamamoto's World Series this year? I know we are Dodger fans and do like to hear perspective, since this is a nice debate. I will say there was a stat similar to the offensive one about like World Series likelihood increased or something like that. Bumgarner ranks higher on that list in 2014 than Yamamoto did in 2025. I'll be perfectly honest. I don't remember all of the details of what Bumgarner did in 2014, other than being supremely impressed and despising him as a player. And so I don't know. I don't know what the answer to this is. Again, there are metrics that say Bumgarner's 14 was quote unquote more valuable than what Yamamoto did. I don't think that factors in the fact that Yamamoto pitched on back-to-back days. I think that's just like total, like some impact on the series.
And am I wrong in that Bumgarner didn't do this in elimination games?
I think he did it in the game they won the World Series, right?
But I don't think it was an elimination game.
They weren't. Yeah, so he won game 1 through a complete game shutout in game 5, and then through 5 shutout innings in game 7.
Okay, was it? Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's
5. I mean, game 5. Imagine if Blake Snell had thrown a complete game shutout in game 5, and then come back and thrown 5 innings of shutout relief in game 7.
He was great. It's essentially where he made his money and his legend was built, because he was good, but not like this in their other runs. And he wasn't the main guy in any of those runs. I think it was first Lincecum, second Kane, and then in that third run it was him. And yeah, that's a fantastic performance. Yamamoto is great in its own way. So yeah, if the numbers bear out that Bumgarner's was better, I think that's fair. I think Yamamoto's going to have a better career for what it's worth, and he's going to probably win at least one more World Series.
Let's hope. Bumgarner, by the way, 21 innings in the World Series, 0.43 ERA. So, I mean, look, I can't stand Madison Bumgarner.
I would like to say, I wonder what his numbers were, and I'm sure they were fantastic, but just curious what they were over the course of that entire postseason, and then what Yamamoto's might have been.
Yeah. Let's see if we can find this. Real time. We'll get IT on that. Madison Bum. Sad bum. What a guy. Let's see. What are we talking? 2014, I think. 52 2/3. in the postseason.
Jeez.
1.03 ERA.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
52. He went 9, 7 2/3, 8, 9, and then 5 innings of relief. I hate this guy.
Who do they play? They played the Royals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was also like they're.
I mean, to be fair, we'll probably history.
Alcides Escobar hit leadoff on that team.
What's that?
Alcides Escobar hit leadoff on that team.
Yeah. I mean, again, they might say the same thing about the 2025 Blue Jays, so we need to be careful about what we say. Nobody's accusing them of being a powerhouse either. But look, I'm not going to argue.
I mean, like over the course of the season, though, the Blue Jays had a pretty good offense. The Royals never did. They won that. They went to their back-to-back World Series based on relief pitching and defense.
Yeah. Cole said Mad Bum didn't have to face Muncy in the postseason. You're damn right he didn't. Gak says legit 2 of those 2014 Royals hitters would make the 8 or 9 hitters for the Jays. Doing what Yama did on zero rest is better, in my opinion. So
the zero rest thing that's meaningful for sure.
Let's see if we can get some stats. Alcides Escobar, Alex Gordon, Lorenzo Cain, Eric Hosmer, Sal Perez, Mike Moustakas, Omar Infante, Jared Dyson, and this is a big one. This was pre-DH, so at least in the complete game shutout, he got to face a pitcher in the lineup as well. So that's an important, factor there. So I mean, Cain, Hosmer, Perez, Moustakas, like that middle, Gordon, that 2 through 6 isn't terrible.
They weren't good.
Yeah.
Like I think the names are bigger at that point than the numbers are.
Yeah, it's possible.
He was great though. Like I mean, that was a postseason for the ages. There's a reason why we look at it the way we do because the rest of his career wasn't great. But like I said, he made his name in that postseason and rightfully so. He was fantastic. Yeah,
3.47 ERA for Bumgarner on the whole. Kind of that 14, 15, 16, 3 straight years under 3, and then by 2020 he was totally cooked. D-Mun, what about Haesung Kim at shortstop? That's an option.
Yeah, I don't think they like him as a shortstop. I think they see him more as a second baseman. And I think there's still questions about how his bat plays. If he has to be an everyday guy.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to say that. People call me a hater. So I'm glad you said it. Kevin asks, losing back-to-back World Series in 17 and 18, could you have ever imagined we would be where we are now? The answer is hell no.
Man.
2019, after losing back-to-back World Series and losing the NLCS, I was like, that's it. It was a good ride, everybody.
Yeah.
You would not have seen positive, delusionally optimistic, whatever they call me, delusionally optimistic Jeff. He was not existing in 2019.
And then they traded for Mookie Betts. And
Ever
then
since I've been here, we started winning.
And then they said, we're going all in.
Yeah. And then they won 2020. So, yeah. Shelly asked, does Alex Freeland get a ring? Yes. Anybody that played for the Dodgers at any point this season, Buddy Kennedy included, will be getting a World Series ring. So shout out to that. Let's get to, how about one more question here? John said, did Yama risk shortening his career by a few years by putting his body on the line to win the series? I hope his contract is guaranteed. I'll say 2 things. One is, this is the World Series. It was Game 7, and these are the moments that you wait your entire career to get to. So I'm not saying the Dodgers should be totally reckless. I'm also saying I am not thinking about the future 6 years from now, what your arm is going to look like. I'm thinking I need to win Game 7 of the World Series. That's one thing. Yeah. Secondly, the way Yamamoto takes care of his body and the way that he handles it, I would argue he was way better prepared to do what he did than like Tyler Glasnow probably was to do what he did.
Absolutely. Which 2 things. I think that's why we should give Tyler Glasnow credit and stop with the moniker of him being soft or whatever. And 2, Yamamoto has been a horse in the past. And I think also the reason why they handle their pitching staff with the kind of gloves that they do during the regular season is so that if they need to, they can push these guys in October. Because again, we've said it all season. They build this roster for the postseason, not the regular season. And that's how they treat the regular season, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not. So far, for 2 years in a row, it's paid off.
Yeah. Yamamoto, by the way, the contract, all baseball contracts are guaranteed. So there's that part of it. He does have 2 opt-outs. He can opt out after the 2029 season and after the 2031 season, although his contract is a little bit backloaded. So the final 6 years of the deal, he can opt out of 6 years, $170 million. That'll be after his age 30 season. I would imagine, barring something catastrophic happening to his arm, that number of 6 for 170 gets a lot bigger by the time we get to that number, because I don't think Yamamoto's agent is going to allow him to play on a 6-year, $170 million contract, given where numbers might be in 2030.
Yeah, he might have 2 Cy Youngs by then.
Yep, exactly. David, at some point we won't win a World Series and may not make the postseason, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. The ownership is committed.
The postseason thing is not going anywhere. I think they have a pretty solid stranglehold on the division. They had a bad regular season and they still won the division by 3 games, 4 games, something like that.
And everybody makes the postseason nowadays.
And that too, yeah. The World Series are, let's not take for granted what these actually are. Let's remember when it wasn't this. And so, yeah, they may not win it next year. I told myself, like, after they beat the Yankees, look, they beat the Yankees. They got an iconic home run out of it. My favorite player, Yamamoto, dealt in game 2, like all of this stuff, right? And I was like, if they don't win it next year, if they don't go back to back, like, I'm satisfied with this. The window's still open. They'll still have a chance to win more.
Yeah.
Man, I was living and dying with every pitch this year, and I was not going to be happy if they lost. And so now I'm watching all the stuff I'm watching, and I'm devouring all the content, and I'm like, man, if they don't win next year, like, we got back to back at least. And I'm sure that will not be my attitude a year from now.
No, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Totally agree. And I think, again, I'm not going to beat this dead horse. This is why Dave Roberts has a superpower, and he's arguably the greatest manager ever. He's the one guy, when handed talent, who has never failed to make the postseason. He just makes the postseason every year. Like, there's never a catastrophic down year where the clubhouse explodes and everybody's underperforming. They figure out a way to make it work. And obviously the farm system helps. Having the best eye for talent in the front office helps. Having superstar talent everywhere. But again, there are teams that have some, if not all of those things to some degree, and they fail. As long as Dave Roberts is here, this team's going to make the playoffs, as far as I'm concerned. DJ, Yama did 120 pitches in a game in the NPB finals. Doing another 120 between 2 games is nothing. He's probably trying to get scouted by aliens. Well, him and Ohtani are firmly on the radar if there are alien scouts watching this. So love it. Yeah, all of the Atlanta Braves, as moderator is saying in the chat. So that is going to do it for us tonight, folks. That is Anthony Witrado. Shout out to Bruce Kuntz, who joined us. I am Jeff Spiegel. Again, we will be back. I will be back, at least in some capacity, tomorrow with the Dodger Stadium PA announcer. So make sure you hop. Todd Lights is going to be here. Go ahead, Anthony.
Go ahead. I'll throw to me when you're ready.
Perfect.
I have one last thing.
7:10 tomorrow night. We'll be live here with him. Questions for all of you. Space for you all to ask questions. So go ahead and check that out. DodgerBlue.com, DodgerBlue1958. We have the whole parade on our YouTube page, so you can go ahead and check that out as well.
I want to say, let us not take for granted how privileged we are to be fans of this particular organization. Amen. Which I don't think there's a debate anymore that this is the best run organization top to bottom in North America. Yeah. North American professional sports.
Toronto FC. You think there's maybe a couple cracks in the front office over there?
Yeah, they got some problems. They got some issues going
on. You don't like the striker acquisition process? Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
This team, for as expensive as things are, for all of this stuff that we might complain about, they reinvest into this team for us. That they're getting paid off of it too, right? They get World Series games, they get postseason revenue. But don't ever forget what the dark times looked like for this organization. Like, seriously, it was really, really bad. Just about a decade or so ago. And so I think that we really need to sometimes take a step back when we're dooming and all of that stuff about, how come we're not going to win the division by more games? Let's just remember that we are very privileged to be living in this time and be adults during this time. Because we talked about, like, if you're a teenager and it might not hit the same way.
Totally.
So we fully get to enjoy what this Dodger organization has become, and it's paid off for us very handsomely for 2 seasons in a row. And I'm with everybody who talked on the stage today. Let's go for 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And as people in the chat are pointing out, like, there's a world where 1 or 2 balls bounce a different way a couple nights ago, and we're not even winning the World Series this year.
For sure.
So it's the thinnest of margins, and I think it's perfectly said, Anthony. Enjoy the ride, people, because there is nothing guaranteed. as far as in sports, as there is nothing guaranteed in life. And if I get to see 3 World Series championships from the Dodgers, that's more than I ever thought I was going to see in my lifetime. I sure as hell hope I don't stop at 3 based on how this team is built and how things look moving forward. But it is a privilege to root for this team. It is a privilege to follow this team. And so we appreciate that every day. I know here, us, the DodgerHeads team, DodgerBlue.com, we appreciate that.
And it's no doubt a dynasty.
Absolutely. And I also want to give a shout out. Shout out to Anthony hopping on some extra nights this week. We appreciate you. Shout out to Bruce joining the team on Thursday night. Shout out to Scott Gearman hopping back in with us on the Unplugged show. Again, that'll be live tomorrow. An incredible team of people, Daniel, Matt, Blake, Justin Lorber, who hops in, Greg Bergman, guys who have filled in all the time. Having started this in 2020, I feel it is such a privilege to have the team that we have built. And I get compliments in my DMs all the time. And I'm like, hey, it is a testament to the people that we have built, the people that have wanted to join this team that we've been able to say yes to. And so kudos to you, Anthony. Shout out to Bruce. Shout out to Daniel and Matt and Blake and Scott and all those guys, because we've got an awesome team, and it makes this job not only fun because we get to talk about the Dodgers, we get to interact with everybody watching live, but we got some great folks that hop on with us as well. So we appreciate all of you fans, almost 3,000 people in here. We are not going anywhere. Tons of content coming your way in the coming days, weeks, and months. And I mean, it's like 100 days until pitchers and catchers report. So if you need if you need to catch a deep breath, do it now, because it is about to come hard and fast. For Anthony, for myself, for Bruce, for the whole DodgerBlue.com medium large sports network team, we appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone. Go Dodgers. And yes, for 351 more days at least, still freaking champs.